welcome back to Wrestling Flash. In this WWE and all things wrestling video we are going to look at Bray Wyatt and Hig Demand, in ring return, Cody Rhodes hints at winning the WWE title, big plans for Rhea Ripley leaked, WWE Raw sees yet another ratings drop, and more. First let's start with WWE Raw sees yet another ratings drop. Despite a stacked card, WWE Raw has seen yet another fall in its ratings, new statistics seem to confirm. This week's episode saw an opening segment between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, a lie detector test conducted on Ezekiel by Kevin Owens, a women's tag team championship match which ended with Rhea Ripley's heel turn and Austin Theory capturing his first singles championship by defeating Finn Balor for the US title. It also featured a wedding segment with the 24/7 championship in focus. Despite having no shortage of content, WWE's flagship show seems to have seen yet another fall in its ratings. Showbiz Daily is reporting that around 1.6 million viewers watched Raw, as opposed to the 1.8 million who tuned in last week. The show also witnessed a rating drop in the crucial 18 minutes 49 demographic, getting a 0.47 this week instead of last week's 0.54. Brandon Thurston's figures further suggest that the show's first hour was the best in terms of overall viewership and key demographics. However, the final hour showed considerable drop-offs in both areas. Though it was not reflected in the show's ratings, WWE featured many big stars in the Raw main event. The seeds for the final match were planted during the opening segment between Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. The Visionary told the American Nightmare that he would be competing in the show's main event against a partner of Rollins' choosing. The partner was none other than Kevin Owens, who lost to Cody after walking out of the match. As the winner looked on, Rollins took advantage and ambushed the American Nightmare from behind. The announcers hyped up the superstar's upcoming match at WrestleMania Backlash as WWE Raw went off the air. What do you think of this week's Raw ratings? Are you enjoying the show as of late? You can share your thoughts in the comments section down below. The Undertaker's real backstage behavior leaked. Brett Sawyer has accused The Undertaker of lying about the time that Buzz Sawyer allegedly stole thousands of dollars from him. The Undertaker, real name Mark Calloway, began wrestling training under Buzz Sawyer in 1986. The WWE Hall of Famer has claimed in several interviews that the trainer took his money before disappearing to work in a different territory. Brett Sawyer, Buzz's brother, said on the Two-Man Power Trip of Wrestling podcast that the Phantom's recollection of the story is inaccurate. He did the same thing, lying, saying Buzz took his money and ran. Buzz stretched him and he ran. If anybody knew Buzz, they knew exactly what happened. I like all these interviews he's always made after 1992, that's when he died. It just irks me when people talking about dead people, they can't talk back or do an interview. Brett Sawyer was a prominent name in the wrestling business alongside his brother between the 1970s and 1990s. Elaborating on his view of the deadman, he claimed that the 57-year-old only succeeded in WWE because he kissed a Undertaker ought to be glad. He wouldn't have made none of that money if Buzz would have broke his neck, I can tell you that. Just because he was a superstar in WWE and all that, that's just because he kissed all the time. That's just my opinion, said Brett Sawyer. The Undertaker shared his version of the story on Steve Austin's Broken Skull Sessions show in 2019. Frustrated by Buzz Sawyer's sudden disappearance, the WWE legend said he took the wrestling veteran's 2 Rottweiler dogs and gave them new homes. While The Undertaker maintains that Buzz stole his money, Brett Sawyer is adamant that the WrestleMania icon simply gave up on attending wrestling school. Brett added that he is prepared to have a conversation with the legendary superstar to address his claims. He said Buzz ripped him off for $3,500 and that's all bulls, man. He only put $2,000 down and Buzz stretched him and he never came back to the wrestling school. That's what happened. I'd love to get on here with him so he can tell me eye to eye. The Undertaker is widely regarded as one of the greatest superstars of all time. He was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame by Vince McMahon on April 1st in Dallas, Texas. WWE's big plans for Rhea Ripley following her heel turn on WWE Raw leaked. Rhea Ripley turned heel following her Women's Tag Team Championship loss this week on WWE Raw. Liv for Brutality faced Sasha Banks and Naomi on the show for the Women's Tag Team Championship in a losing effort. The former women's champion attacked Liv Morgan after their match and delivered the Riptide before exiting the ring, confirming the duo's split. According to a report by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, Ripley turned heel in order to insert herself into the WWE Raw Women's Championship program. With Ripley, her being heel right now makes sense because Bianca Belair's a babyface. She's got one opponent, which is Becky Lynch. They don't want to go back to that right away. Meltzer went on to note that this could be the reason why Sonya Deville's match against Bianca Belair has been pulled forward. That's why they're doing Sonya Deville right now. If you notice, the Sonya Deville thing was supposed to be on the pay-per-view and they moved it up a couple weeks to be on TV next week. So, maybe that's to move Rhea Ripley into that spot sooner. But, Rhea Ripley right now, because of Bianca Belair and everything like that, she should be a heel right now. Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan were known as Liv for Brutality throughout their time together on WWE Raw. but their split has been teased in recent weeks. 2 weeks ago, Ripley walked out following her match with Morgan and later confirmed that she was able to secure a women's tag team championship match. The championship angle allowed them to remain together for an extended period. Ripley was then missing from last week's episode of the show before they were able to cash in on their opportunity last night. The loss obviously became too much for the Nightmare, who is used to winning as the only female superstar to have lifted the NXT UK, NXT, and Raw Women's Championships in WWE history. Cody Rhodes hints at winning the WWE title. Cody Rhodes has made a big tease about the future of the WWE title in his latest Instagram story. After leaving AEW, the American Nightmare made his surprise return at WrestleMania 38 and defeated Seth Rollins in a singles match. The next night on Raw, Rhodes made it clear that he wanted to become the WWE champion. In his latest Instagram story, Cody shared a picture of quite possibly the most famous WWE title belt in history, the Winged Eagle belt. The image has left many fans clamoring for a title win for the American Nightmare so that he can bring the old title design back. In the early 2010s, Cody was one of the hottest acts on WWE TV. In August 2011, Rhodes won the Intercontinental title by defeating Ezekiel Jackson on an episode of SmackDown. About 2 months later, he debuted a brand new design for his belt. The design consisted of a white strap and plates similar to the classic Intercontinental belt design from the 1980s. The change was well received by the WWE Universe. Rhodes is credited by many as the one to revive the Intercontinental title's lost prestige around that time. Cody's last WWE stint ended in 2016. A lot has changed over the past 6 years, and he is one of the biggest babyfaces in the industry today. Judging by his increasing momentum, it wouldn't be surprising if Rhodes wins the title somewhere down the line. Roman Reigns currently holds the WWE title. He won the prestigious belt by defeating Brock Lesnar in a winner-takes-all championship unification match at WrestleMania 38. The Tribal Chief has been unstoppable for about 600 days at this point. It'll be interesting to see how Rhodes fares against the undisputed WWE Universal Champion if the duo comes face-to-face in the future. If Cody Rhodes somehow wins the WWE title in the near future, should he bring back the Winged Eagle WWE title belt? Sound off in the comments below. Bray Wyatt's in-ring return, asking for a big contract. Wyndham Rotunda is reportedly demanding a very high price for an in-ring return, be it in WWE or AEW. The Fiend's last in-ring appearance came at WrestleMania 37 when he lost to Randy Orton. The Fiend was released by WWE on July 31st. Taking to Twitter, Wrestling Observer's Dave Meltzer shared an interesting note about Wyatt. Meltzer noted that WWE would be interested in AEW's top stars at the moment, and vice versa. A fan responded to the journalist and asked him if either of the two promotions were interested in the former Universal Champion. Dave Meltzer stated in his response that Wyatt's asking price is very high. Wyndham Rotunda's Bray Wyatt character made his main roster debut in 2013 and targeted WWE Hall of Famer Kane. The Wyatt family, comprising of the man himself, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan, ran roughshod through a long list of top babyfaces for months on end. During this run, the Wyatt family had won the WWE Championship on one occasion, mere weeks before WrestleMania 33. Unfortunately, his reign didn't last long, and he lost the title to Randy Orton at the Show of Shows. Where would you like to see Bray Wyatt make his in-ring return? Let us know in the comments section below. Wyatt went through a major character change in mid-2019 and debuted the gimmick of the Fiend. This sinister entity possessed supernatural powers and was quickly pushed as a major star. Rotunda won the first of his 2 Universal Championships at Crown Jewel 2019 with a victory over Seth Rollins. His run with the title ended when he was defeated by WWE Hall of Famer Goldberg at Super Showdown 2020. He won his second Universal title at SummerSlam 2020 by defeating Braun Strowman. This reign lasted only 7 days, with Roman Reigns winning the championship at WWE Payback. During his WWE run, Rotunda was a big merchandise mover. In late 2019, Wyatt surpassed the likes of Roman Reigns and Becky Lynch in terms of merchandise sales. The former Universal Champion's merch sales were a big reason fans didn't anticipate his release from the company. In November of last year, Wyatt was reported to be working on a Hollywood project alongside Jason Baker.